Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Soul. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. I'm not going to make a mega video. I'm not going to put all of this information in one video. I'm going to break it up. I don't know as of yet what order this video is going to come out in, but I do know one thing though. This is going to be the loot video. If you clicked on this, you probably saw the title. This is going to go over Gnomeregan loot. And as you can see on the screen here, we have so many spoiler alerts. That's because Blizzard has been dropping some bombs and some information about Phase 2. And the data miners are hard at work uncovering everything. So, a lot of things to talk about here. One thing I do want to say first is about data mining in SOD. I kind of feel like that's backtracking because if Blizzard isn't doing a PTR, right, like an open PTR for players to test, why are they allowing data mining? Why didn't they encrypt these files? Like, I get the spirit of not having PTR. You want players to go out in the world and discover the rooms for themselves. All that is cool, but then you go let the players data mine things, and then it kind of ruins not ruins the whole surprise, but it takes the air out of a lot of the surprise factor. So I feel like that's half stepping. If you're not gonna have a PTR, you might as well just encrypt the file so we can really discover things and really have that shock value. But if you're not gonna have a PTR, but you're gonna allow data mining, I feel like you're just half stepping. And it kind of just opens the door for you having to backtrack and rehash things later and retune things later once this stuff does become available on live servers, right? Because if you don't have a PTR, players can't test anything. Obviously, you can't see the ins and outs or the ramifications of certain runes and stuff like that. So, I don't know, just my quick little blurb about data mining and stuff. But yeah, let's get to it. Like I said, this video is going to be about loot, so we're going to go into the Gnomeregan loot stuff. If you don't want to see anything about Gnomeregan or the loot, please click off the video now. I'm sorry, spoilers alert, but that's your spoiler warning. So, just like in previous videos where I broke down trinkets or armor or tier, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to break down each category that was data mined. I'm going to talk about the implications, what I think might be best, what I think might be useless, and hopefully it'll give you a lot of useful information. So starting, we have the two-handed weapons. We have 2 epics and we have 6 blue boys. So the first 2 are the defibrillating staff and Thermoplug's rocket cleaver. The staff boasts 14 intellect, 15 spirit, 11 stamina, increases your healing spell power by 35 and your arcane spell damage by 26. Has the nifty little on-use effect that it can shock a player back to life, or a chance to shock a player back to life. Can't be used in combat every 30 minutes. Obviously, this is kind of tailored for mages. Not really tailored. I won't say tailored because any healer who can use staffs can really use 35 healing power. What they really wanted to do is allow mages to use it, and as we know, mages can't really make the full use of just raw healing power, right? Because the way Temporal Beacon works, or the way the regeneration rune works, is the regeneration spell, scales with healing power, but when you're attacking something, the damage that gets converted into healing doesn't. That goes through the arcane or the spell power, the regular spell power modifiers. So they, I guess, slapped on arcane spell power just to kind of help mages if they do get this staff. Mages can still kind of double dip with this, right? Because when you cast regeneration, it's going to go off the healing power. And when you cast something like arcane missiles or arcane blast, that's going to go through the arcane spell power of the staff. So they can kind of double dip, not really, but the moral to the story is they can make use of this staff just like any healer. Has really good stats. Has a lot of stamina, a lot of intellect, a lot of spirit. So any healer is going to want this staff. So really, really good item. Next is Thermoplug's rocket cleaver. Has 29 strength and 12 stamina. That's a lot. And it's a 2.7 speed. So this axe is really going to be demolishing things if you can get your hands on it. By comparison, we can look at something like the whirlwind axe that warriors are going to be questing to get, and it's a weapon that's really kind of in its own infamy, where I've heard tales of people using the whirlwind axe from like level 35, level 40, all the way to level 60 because it's really that good of an item. And I think Thermoplug's rocket cleaver isn't better than the whirlwind axe. If you just look at a stat by stat comparison, I'm sure Editor Soul is going to put the tooltip up for the whirlwind axe. But if you look at the stat by stat comparison, it's not super far off, right? The whirlwind axe is a lot slower. It's almost a full second slower. So big slow hits are really going to matter. Big crits are going to matter. It has more stamina than Thermoplug's rocket cleaver, but it has less strength. But again, that strength differentiator is kind of offset by how slow the whirlwind axe is, which means it's just going to hit really hard. So any class like a warrior, obviously, who cares a lot about weapon damage, still might prefer the whirlwind axe because it's going to hit harder on the back end. But now we're seeing a lot of things being tuned around attack power. So the Thermoplex Rocket Cleaver is also a really good item too. So the Thermoplex Rocket Cleaver might come out higher DPS, but I think the Whirlwind X might be comparable, or not comparable, but more preferable to Warriors. We'll see, but in any regard or in any rate, the Rocket Cleaver is a really good item, really good weapon. The next item we have is the Hydro Staff. You know, it's just a meme item, let's be real, right? It gives you a lot of frost resist and allows you to breathe underwater, so it's a cool little vanity item. It never was really used in any implication of combat, but like I said, the underwater breathing is really cool if you got to farm something underwater. The frost resist might come in handy, who knows, but it's just a meme item. But I think Blizzard would be kind of remiss if they didn't include the Hydro Staff. I would have liked to see an updated version, maybe do something else, but maybe a chance on hit to like spawn a little frost elemental or something like that. But I mean, it's okay. Like, why change the meme if it ain't broke? Next, we have the Gizmotron Giga Chopper. Yo, what a name. What a name for an item. This one is probably a little bit more comparable to the Whirlwind Axe. This one, and maybe I'll throw up the tooltip. We'll see. But anyway, this one has 3.2 weapon speed with 22 strength and 9 agility. So really good DPS stats. Nice big slow weapon. This also might be a warrior preferred weapon in case they don't want to do the Whirlwind Axe quest, or, you know, can't get somebody to help them. But honestly, the Whirlwind Axe quest has been so, you know, ran down and solved. Like, people can solo it. Like, it's not that big a deal. But this is a really, really good item. So if you get this before you get the Whirlwind Axe, you might just be in good sailing overall. Next item is the Supercharged Head Chopper. This one is a little bit of a faster weapon. It has 13 strength and 12 intellect, so I guess a little bit more tailored to paladins, right? And it has a chance on hit to blast the target for 80 to 100 nature damage. So this is also really good. You know, I feel like this weapon might be a little bit more tailored to shamans instead of paladins, right? I don't even know if shamans can use axes in vanilla. I think they can. But the reason I say that is because that nature damage kind of goes well into their whole little kit here. And because it's a 2.8 speed, it's faster, might help you proc Wind Fury more. I don't know if that chance on hit would consume the Storm Strike debuff. If it does, that might be a gift and a curse, right? But overall, still a decent item. Anytime that a weapon procs like a magic ability or reduces armor, it's also always pretty good because the magic will always bypass the armor, and normally, quote unquote, normally, weapons that have a Sunder Armor or an armor piercing style effect will stack with the Warrior Sunder Armor, so weapons like this is always pretty cool to see. By comparison, the Staff of the Evil Genius has less intellect and less spell power than the Rod of the Ancient Sleepwalker from Akamai, but the Rod doesn't have the 1% increased spell hit, so that hit might play a factor. Like 1% hit for 6 spell power might be the move that you want to take if you're a class that doesn't get a lot of hit from talent, so that might be the move. But if you have the Rod of the Ancient Sleepwalker, you might be in good sailing. You might could pass on the Staff of the Evil Genius, so keep that in mind. But if you don't have the Rod of the Sleepwalker, the Staff of Evil Genius might be the move for you. Next, we have the Gyromatic Macro Adjuster. This is a polearm sporting 15 agility, 9 stamina, 15 intellect. And at first glance, this is like prime hunter melee weaving hunter real estate, right? Even the melee, like the actual melee hunters, not just the melee weavy boys, because it has a lot of agility, which is always good. Has some nice stamina, has intellect to increase their mana pool. Not saying that warriors and paladins and druids won't want this. Druids can also use this too. Warriors can use it to great effect. 15 agility is almost 1% crit. And even for tank druids, right, like 15 agility is almost 1% dodge. It's 5 off. So this is a pretty good item all around for just people who can make use of the agility and the stamina. But I would say it's probably more so favorable to hunters, paladins, druids, right? But pretty decent item. And then last but not least, we have the big boy, the item that all the druids and I guess paladins and shamans now also really, really want. The Automatic Crowd Pummeler. This has 22 strength, 8 agility, and again can only be used by paladins, shamans, and druids. And it has the equip effect, gives 69 attack power to druids in their animal forms. And the on use, probably the best on use we've seen in vanilla in its entirety thus far, damn near. increasing your attack speed by 50% for 30 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown, which effectively makes this weapon, in a weird way, probably one of the best cooldowns in the game, giving its duration, its effect, and its short CD. 3 minutes is like nothing in classic terms. Like, you see things like 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. 3 minutes is almost unheard of. So this is the Giga item that every druid is gonna want. I'm surprised, honestly. I'm surprised they just didn't give this the purple text just for, prosperity's sake, like for appearances, right? Because for all intents and purposes, this is an epic item. So I'm surprised they didn't do that. But yeah, druids rejoice. No longer having to farm a multitude of these. You can now just get one and keep it, and you're gonna see druids parsing up a storm with this item. Really, really good item. Next, we have the main hand weapons. We have 3 epics and 1 rare, starting with the Electrocutioner's Needle. This is a fast, or kind of semi-fast. I would say 1.7 is fast. Fast one-hand sword, has a chance on hit to do some nature damage with no stats. I think this is prime for rogues. Even rogue tanks can make use of this. Don't know about warrior DPS. This might be a little too fast for warrior DPS liking, and the lack of stats might deter them. But it might be a good interim weapon if there's something else. But I think the lack of stacks and the weapon speed might deter the Fury Warriors a little bit. But purple item is purple item, right? So people kind of forget all senses of logic and reality when they see them purple letters. So it might be a good weapon, but I think this is definitely good for rogues. Definitely good for probably melee hunters too. I always forget about the melee hunters, but probably good for melee hunters too. Probably good for rogues and rogue tanks. The verdict still might be out, in my opinion, on the warrior DPS, and I don't think this is a good tank weapon. It's too fast, doesn't have any stats, no stamina on it, right? No avoidance on it, so not really that great for tanking, but DPS might want it. Next, we have Mechatork's Arcano Shredder. This is a slow fist weapon, has 2 strength, 3 agility, and the chance on hit to deal some arcane damage, reduce resistances by 45, and increase all spell damage taken by 6% for 5 minutes. This is a Giga weapon, and the fact that they have it on a fist weapon is kind of trolly. But with that being said, this is really good for shaman tanks. Really good for warrior tanks. Can shamans use fist weapons in vanilla? I feel like they can. But really good for warrior tanks. I know warriors can use fist weapons. This is like, I won't say updated, but maybe the spiritual successor to like that Nightfall axe. That axe from vanilla that had a chance on hit to increase all spell damage taken by 15%, but it was only a 5-second duration. This one is 6% for a 5-minute duration, and it still reduces resistances. It does some arcane damage, and it has stats on it. To my knowledge, Nightfall did not have stats on it. It was just that weapon proc. So I think this is really going to be a good weapon. You really want somebody in your group to have this, whether a tank, warrior DPS, somebody in the group is going to want to have this for the speed runs and the parse runs and so on and so forth. So this is a really good item. Next, we have the Glimmering Gizmo Blade. This one has 7 stamina, 4 intellect, and 19 spell damage. Has a little bit of armor on it too, so warlock tanks rejoice. We get another one. We got another one, boys. I want to go back real quick. I want to go back to the Arcano Shredder. Remember that I said that weapons that reduce armor, like have that Sunder armor effect or that armor penetration effect, or do debuffs normally stack. We're gonna see if the Arcano Shredder stacks. Probably won't stack with other Arcano Shredders. I doubt it does that, but other weapon effects we'll see. Just keep that in mind and keep an eye out for that. All right, and the last main hand weapon we have is the Gearmender's Grace. This is 4 intellect, 3 spirit on a main hand mace with 20 healing. This is a pretty good mace, I'm not gonna lie. 20 increased healing spell power is not bad at all. I think that's only 15 off from the epic staff, so keep that in mind. That's only, like I say, only 15, like it's not a lot. But just to jump off hand real quick, if you have the Gearmender's Grace, right, and then if you look down at the offhand and you have the 960 repair manual, which also increases healing by 22, you already have more healing spell power than the staff would give you. So that's why I say it's not too far off for one item, like a main hand to have 20 healing power when an epic staff has 35. In the grand scheme of things, those numbers aren't that far apart. So keep that in mind. really good healer mace. If you don't get the staff, you can probably look forward to getting the Gearmender's Grace. Next, let's go to the one-hander. So these weapons obviously don't have that must be in main hand, effect on them. They can be in either weapon, either item slot, right? So let's go through it. We have the Toxic Revenger. So the Toxic Revenger 2 is a 1.9 speed dagger, which is a little slow for a dagger. But I mean, 1.9, that's the same weapon speed as Thunder Fury, right? So keep that in mind. But it has a chance on hit to deal some nature damage every 5 seconds to an enemy within 8 yards around the caster for 15 seconds. So basically, you get 3 procs. Every 5 seconds is 3 hits on a 15-second duration. And this is a pretty cool dagger. Like I said, it's a little slow for a dagger, but if you like the middle of the pack slowish weapons, you could use this. And like I said, it has the same weapon speed as Thunder Fury. We all know Thunder Fury is BIS. So I would say rogue tanks and warrior tanks can make use out of this, and shamans too. I forget shamans can use daggers. So rogues, warriors, and shamans can make use out of this. The lack of stats has me questioning whether or not if DPS players want this, like DPS warriors, DPS rogues. I feel like DPS rogues might not, but then again, I don't know too much about rogue DPS, so don't take my word for that at all. Warriors probably don't want this either. But I mean, if the proc is procking, right? If it's a high chance to proc, and if it's doing a lot of damage, obviously those numbers really don't mean anything right now, like the 30 nature damage, because it could hit live and that 30 could go to 60. Who knows? So I don't want to put too much stock into the actual number. Really, the proc chance is what we're looking at, and if it's a high proc chance, maybe. But at face value, I don't know if rogues or warrior DPS tunes would want this, because I feel like there's a lot of more favorable options for those classes than this Toxic Revenger 2. So this might stick with warrior, shaman tanks, and rogue tanks. Next, we have the Ultrasonic Vibroblade. This is a very fast axe, a 1.6 weapon speed axe with a chance on hit to do a Sunder Armor effect. And like I said previously, weapon effects that do Sunder Armor, that have procs, that have other debuffs, normally are pretty good because they stack with, class and player abilities. Now, there was an issue before because there was a debuff limit in vanilla, right? You can only have a certain amount of debuffs on a enemy at a certain time. So you really wanted these weapon style effects, but then it kind of shafted other specs like enhance with Storm Strike. Storm Strike takes up a debuff slot. Obviously, you don't want a weak debuff like Storm Strike overtaking something like a Sunder Armor effect that affects everybody, right? Same thing with the Nightfall weapon. You don't want something else that's minuscule like Shadow Word Pain overtaking something like Nightfall. So now that we don't have a debuff limit anymore, things like this are going to add up really, really well. So even though it's a fast weapon, in practicality use, like for high parsing numbers, it's probably not the best weapon. But for raid damage, for speed runs, this is a really good weapon. Don't sleep. Next, we have the Oscillating Blast Hammer. This is a typical tank mace. It's 2 weapon speed, 2-second weapon speed, 5 strength, 7 stamina, 4 defense. Nice amount of strength, high stamina. Defense is only useful for tanks, so typical tank weapon. And then lastly, we have the Mechanostrider Muffler. This is also a mace. This is a 2.4 speed, so I think a little bit more tailored to warrior DPS and other DPS classes who can use maces, and has 16 attack power, so pretty good. Pretty good. I don't really have too much else to say about it. It's simple and effective. What else do you want from it, right? What else could you ask for a weapon? Simple and effective. So there you have it for the one-handed weapons. Next, let's go to the offhands. We have the 960 repair manual, which I kind of talked about a little bit. 6 stamina, 6 intellect, and a whopping 22 increased healing done. That's a lot of healing done. And I'd made the comparison before that if you have the Gearmender's Grace, the one-handed mace with 20 healing done, and then you have this repair manual with 22, you already have more increased healing than the defibrillating staff, right? So keep that in mind. It's not end all be all if you don't get the staff, because if you get that mace offhand combo, you're in pretty good sailing if you're a healer. So really, really good item. Next, we have the Cogmaster's Claw, which is a fist weapon that can only be equipped in the offhand. Another slow boy, 2.8 speed, 6 strength, 6 agility, 5 stamina. This is a really good weapon. Honestly, I feel like if you have this weapon and you have Mechatorx Arcano Strider, you're going to be solid. I feel like rogues are really going to have fun if they get the main hand fist weapon and the offhand fist weapon, and they have those gloves that increase fist weapon skill. Like, they're gonna be there's gonna be some cool fist weapon shenanigans. So I like them both. I like this item, really good. Only works on the offhand, so warrior tanks really can't make use of this. Shaman tanks, I still don't know if shamans can use fist weapons in vanilla. I think they can, but they can't use this because obviously shield mastery, stuff like that. So rogue tanks, rejoice. Next, we have the Gnomeregan, kind of a play on the Necronomicon. 2 intellect, 2 spirit, 3 shadow resist, increasing your spell power by 14. Simple and effective is what I'll say about this item. Simple and effective. No stamina on it, which is kind of sad. It kind of devalues it a little bit for me for warlock tanks, but who cares? Has 14 spell power, right? So pretty good item still. Next, we have Shoni's Dismantling Tool. This is another callback. There was another item in the game that came from Gnomeregan that did the same weapon effect, but this is an offhand axe with a chance on hit to disarm the target for 5 seconds. 1.9 speed, not too bad. Yeah, I think this is just another flavor piece, kind of like the Hydrocane staff. Like, I don't know if you're really going to use this. You'll probably use this if you are looking for an upgrade and you're still like rocking something that's low level, right? Or you have not got lucky from a dungeon drop, so there might be some use to this. But the disarm effect is pretty cool too, especially in like PvP scenarios. But I think to me this is like in the same category as the Hydrocane. So there you have that. Next, we have the ranged items. We have 1 epic ranged item, and then we have 4 rare items, starting with Thermoplug's Custom Blaster. 2.9 speed with 26 ranged attack power. The Giga Hunter item. You're a monster if you take this from a hunter. Actually, you shouldn't because it's ranged attack power, right? So I kind of, that automatically, like, kind of separates it. Like, yeah, you're a monster if you take this from a hunter. Like, that hunter should leave your guild. Like, crazy. But this is a super great item. Super big, slow weapon. Nice attack power. Hunters are going to rejoice if they get this. It's a gun, though, so say what you will about that. Like, if you're a troll boy, obviously you can't make use of bow specialization. But if you're a dwarf boy, great. So, really good. Next item we have is also a gun, the high-tech super gun Mark 7. This is 4 stamina, 12 attack power. This is probably like the tank item, quote unquote, but also the hunter waiting room item until you get the custom blaster, because it has a 2.3 speed, and just by a quick glance at the other range weapon, it's faster, and hunters tend to want the slower range items. So this is probably for hunters the Thermoplug Custom Blaster waiting room item. For tanks, it's still pretty good. For like warrior tanks and rogue tanks, pretty good item. And then next we have Falco's Sting, a 2-second weapon speed with 8 agility. This might be good for tank tunes too, like rogues and warriors, because the 8 agility boosts your avoidance. So this also might be pretty good. You kind of just got to value what's more valuable to you, the stamina or the avoidance. Depending on the damage that comes out of Gnomeregan, maybe the avoidance is better, who knows, but stamina, you can't go wrong with stamina. But there you go. I don't think hunters are going to really want this item. It's a little too fast, right? A little too fast. It does have agility on it, so this also might be the I'm just waiting till custom blaster drops type deal, but a little too fast, but it does have the agility on it. Next item is a wand, Izzleflix Inextinguishable Igniter. Say that 3 times fast. Has 8 intellect, simple and effective. What can I say? It's a wand, has 8 intellect. Can't be mad at it, right? I think up until this point, it's the only wand with intellect. I could be wrong on that, but to my opinion, it's the only wand with 8 intellect. I don't think a BFD wand has 8 intellect on it. So, yeah, I think the next one is the Phoenix Ignition, which has 4 or 5 intellect on it. So yeah, 8 intellect is a boost over the Phoenix Ignition. There you go. And then lastly, we have the Mechano Strider Gear Shifter. This wand increases your spell damage by 9. Every caster is going to want this. What can I say? No wand has spell damage up until this point. I know that for a fact. So every cast is going to want this wand for obvious reasons. All right, so I'm going to save the rings, cloaks, like the accessory items for the gear version of this video, but I will include the trinkets in this video because I think trinkets and weapons kind of have the same feel when you get them, right? Both are big DPS increases. Both feel really good. When you get a weapon, you feel really good. When you get a trinket, you feel really good. So I'll put the trinkets in the weapon video. So let's start with the miniaturized combustion chamber. This gives you 6 intellect, 10 fire resist, and 12 spell power, and an on-use effect that randomly channels health into mana over 10 seconds. It's like a prolonged life tap. That's kind of the way I look at it, right? It's on a 30-minute cooldown. Don't know how much mileage you're going to get out of this, but in a pinch, it could be useful, especially if it gives you like 150 mana every second for 10 seconds. Like, right, that's a lot of mana. So in a pinch, it could be pretty useful. You're just going to feel bad every time it gives you one mana every second, right? So it is what it is. It still gives you 12 spell power, so not bad. Next, we have the Gyromatic Experiment 420B. 420, that's funny. Gives you 10 frost resist, 18 attack power, and on use increases your attack speed by 5%. You may be able to push this experiment further. That's interesting. That's an interesting little flavor text. If it says further, does it mean more attack speed or increasing the duration? So this is going to be a pretty important item. Giving you a 18 attack power and attack speed is prime warrior, rogue, paladin, melee boy real estate. So I don't know what it means yet by pushing it further. Obviously, we can't PTR test this, but really good trinket even at face value. Really good trinket. One thing I'll note is that it doesn't say it's unique, so maybe you use 2. I don't think so. But then again, if looking at all the trinkets, none of them say unique. But like, if you look at like the rings here, like they say unique. So I don't know. Maybe you can use 2. Who knows? We'll see. It'll be kind of nutty if you could use 2 of these. Like 36 attack power, 10% attack speed, and still being able to push them both further. That's kind of crazy. I don't think that means that. That would be kind of wild if it meant you could use 2, but who knows? Blizzard is, in their testing phase. But anyway, moving on. Next, we have the Niodine pill bottle. Blizzard and their gnome puns. So this is 7 spirit, 10 nature resist. A lot of resistances in this raid. A lot of resistances. But anyway, gives you 4 MP5 on equip, and on use, make the target ally immune to snare and immobilizing effects for 5 seconds. Also removes existing snare and immobilizing effects. 30-minute CD. Side effects may include upset stomach, heartburn, and shrinkage. Oh, that word shrinkage terrifies me. But this is a really good trinket too for like PvP scenarios. The 4 MP5, little weak. The 7 spirit is okay. 10 nature resist is okay. Dependent on how many, it doesn't even matter how many roots because it's a 30-minute CD. So there could be like 1,000,000 roots. You're still only going to get 1 every 30 minutes. But I think this is a good PvP trinket. It's a good mana regen trinket too. 4 MP5 and 7 spirit is really good, I guess, in unison. Like if it was just one or the other, I would say I don't know about it. But 4 MP5 and 7 spirit together is pretty good. 10 nature resist is okay too. I think this is a better PvP trinket than PvE trinket, but we'll see. Next, we have Ordal's Hardened Core. This is 7 stamina, 5 arcane resist, 5 nature resist. Gives you a 1% increased dodge, and on use, increasing your armor by 1k. That's a lot of armor. But movement speed is reduced by 60%. This effect cannot be removed and lasts for 10 seconds. So this trinket is obviously really good even without the on use, right? 7 stamina, some resistances, and a 1% dodge increase. Really, really good. The on use, increasing your armor by 1,000 is also really good. I don't know if the trade-off is worth it. This might get some usage out of certain fights. This isn't a trinket that you're going to be using the on use religiously, right? You're going to kind of have to gauge where you can use this trinket safely. The crowd pummeler might be one, but I feel like the crowd pummeler, just based off of what we know about it, I feel like it's going to have a knockback effect. And if you get knocked back when you have 60% reduced movement speed, that might just be death. Even if you have 1k armor, right? But I will say this: the 7 stamina and the 1% dodge alone is really good. Slap on some resistances for added benefit, not bad at all. The Trog Transfigurator 3000 looks like it's just a cosmetic item. Just turns you into a Trog for 30 minutes. Whoopee, right? There's not really too much to say about that one. If you want to be a Trog, go ahead and be a Trog. And then the last trinket we have is the Domesticated Attack Chicken. This is like the Engineer's chicken, like the battle chicken, but for non-engineer boys. That's at least the kind of vibe I get from it. Release your Domesticated Attack Chicken that will fight for you for 1.5 minutes or until defeated for a 30-minute cooldown. Now, obviously, the battle chicken was really popular because if it survived long enough, it gave the party a 5-minute attack speed increase that's stacked with other effects, right? In TBC, I still use that trinket just to help boost my group's damage, right? My group was giga in TBC. I was a feral druid, so I gave leader of the pack. I gave improved leader of the pack because not improved, but the improved version of with the idol, right? Increased the crit a little bit more. I gave the battle chicken debuff. I was a really good support buff boy. I'm reminiscing, but anyway, yeah. Dependent on the health of this trinket, of the chicken that is attached to this trinket, I should say. Depending on the health, this could be a really good trinket, and also depending on if it does the battle squawk. If it doesn't do the battle squawk, you might as well just use the other one if you're an engineer. But I can't imagine them increasing or implementing this item and it not giving the attack speed effect if it lasts long enough. And 1.5 minutes is long enough for it to last to give the battle squawk if it doesn't die. Like if it has 20 HP, it's gonna die to any ancillary AoE damage. But if it has a decent amount of health, it can survive long enough to give you the buff, and then you can move on with life. But overall, pretty good trinkets. The verdict is still out on the Gyromatic Experiment 420B because I don't know, or no one knows, I shouldn't say, it's not just me. No one knows what you may be able to push this experiment further means. It's not unique, so again, I guess the speculation is that you could double equip these, but then again, none of these trinkets say unique, and I feel like it'd be kind of broken if you could, double equip any one of these trinkets, so who knows. But we'll see. Only time will tell. Some really fascinating weapons and trinkets coming from Gnomeregan. I can't wait for it. But anyway, that's it for the video, guys. If you like what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing. We got a lot more data to cover. I'm going to try to bring the content to you guys. But as always, you've been great. I've been Soul, and I'm out. Peace.